I am so excited. We're going to go live. Okay. Maybe. Well, it's frozen. I'm going to step back a sec, hop back in with you guys. Oh, it's great when there's an error. Hi again. I can see you again. Live on Facebook. Awesome. It's not working.
You can do it, Jenny.
I guess we're going live on my Facebook page instead. Yay. Okay, well, that's what's going to happen. Here we go.
Jordan, what kind of watch is that?
What?
What kind of watch is that?
It's a Garmin.
Garmin.
Yep.
Track everything.
All right, so we are live on Facebook. We had an alternative plan here. I can't talk. So we are on my Facebook page, so I'll make it public so everyone can see us, because all this information is valuable to all people, right, guys?
That's right.
Well, thanks so much. I'll just hit us off here with, I'm so excited to be here with my friends Jon Brooks and Jordan Freed. And we are going to be talking, we're going to get real. This is real estate in the real world. Right, guys?
That's right.
Yes, it is.
So this all came to be because I was creeping on your post, Jon, and saw that Jordan commented, and I was like, whoa, the two of them, my brain will totally explode. So today is about you guys, and I'm just going to ask lots of questions. And I find that on these lives, I want to take notes, but just remind me that I can come back and watch it again so I can be present with you guys, okay? And we are live on Facebook. I'm going to record this as well, so if people aren't able to watch right now. Jordan, let's just start it off with you. Why don't you introduce yourself and what you do in your world, and then Jon, you'll get to introduce yourself as well, and then we'll dive into content of profit and purpose. What do you say?
Okay. So thanks for having me, Jenny. I'm Jordan Freed. I am a MAPS executive coach, and my world primarily exists in a laboratory of coaching agents and coaching coaches. So I've been with MAPS now for 4.5 years. Before that, I was a team leader. And before that, I was an agent. I've been with Keller Williams now for 13 years. So I was born and bred here.
Yep. Well, Judy Johns sure always likes all the posts that when I mention you.
Oh, if it wasn't for Judy Johns, I wouldn't still be in the business. The Johns family team is such an amazing group of people. I have nothing but gratitude for them.
Yeah, I can tell. That's good stuff. All right, Mr. Jon, share your stuff.
Yeah, I went to school for finance. I graduated, wanted to go do the investment banking route on Wall Street because I thought that was what all the cool people were doing. So I thought I'd jump on that bandwagon. Realized that it wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. There's like a set track that you have to follow to graduate through the process, regardless of how much value you brought to the company. And I'm the kind of person that wants to go full speed. I had the great privilege to have a bunch of mentors and was able to jump into the real estate sales business. In 3 years, we grew a business to 36 million in sales, and with me and my wife, and yeah, things are going very well. So we're very excited about where things are going. I had the great privilege to coach under Jordan as well, who I learned a bunch from. So it's really cool that we're staying connected like this.
I love it. Well, you both offer so much value in the short time that I have known you both. So I am honored. I'm Jenny Wolek from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm an agent. I have a team, and I'm always looking to grow and learn. And so that's what today will be about, Jordan, you listed a couple things, and we can go with those topics to start on. So why don't do you remember how we're going to kind of attack this?
Yeah, so I might go in a little bit of a different direction, but we'll stay on the same path, okay? So I was thinking about this today, Jenny, and, we're talking about purpose-driven profit, right? And in the one thing, Gary Keller talks about how we need to make enough money to fund our purpose. And the challenge with that is that in order to know how much money you need, you've got to know your purpose, right? And so back in 2012, I had the good fortune to actually interview Gary. And one of the questions that I asked him was, how do you define success? And he came back with this answer that just was so simple and yet so powerful. He said, success is knowing what you want and getting it. And he said then that the challenge with most people is that if you were to stop 10 people at random on the street and just ask them, what is it that you want? Or what is it that success means to you? Very few people would give you any real specifics. And so that really lit me on fire to think about, okay, I always knew that I wanted to go into coaching, and thinking through helping people build purposeful lives. One of the things I know we're tasked with, or one of the things I know we all want the same thing. We want life on our terms. The challenge is that a lot of us haven't taken the time to truly know who we are and to define our terms. And there's a couple of ways to get there, and there's a couple of things that I've picked up over the years that I wanted to share with people. And one of them is that I think there are some people who kind of know what it is that they want or what they want to be when they grow up, and then there are some that don't. And oftentimes on a coaching call, like if I ask somebody, what is it that you want from your life? That's such a big question that it's kind of like that deer in the headlights look, right? And so one way that we have found to back into this is to say, all right, Jenny, tell me all the things you don't want. Mm. Make a list of everything you don't want. And the reason that this works is that if you look at most people, 90% of people are actually wired to move more away from pain than they are towards pleasure. About 10% of the population is driven towards pleasure, but the majority of us, including me, are wired much more to move away from pain. And so when we make that list of what we don't want, when you make the list, you can actually go down next to each one of them, and what you want is just the opposite of that. And so it's a really easy way to start defining your terms and getting into who am I and what do I want. And one thing that I would add to Gary's definition when he said it, success is knowing what you want and getting it. I think it's getting it and that it fulfills you, that you get that sense of purpose, that sense of meaning from it. And it's a real challenge with people to have climbed the ladder of success only to find later that they've got it leaning against the wrong wall. So one way to get there, I believe, or have seen to be effective if you don't already know the answer to what your terms are, is make a list. What are the things that you don't want? And get really clear on what does success mean to you? What does life on my terms, what does that really look like? Does that make sense?
Yes. What's cool is that it's not by coincidence that inside of this class that I am an instructor for, QL for Young Adults, which is powered by Quantum Leap by Gary Keller, we have a mission statement exercise. Like, we're teaching our youth to the foundation for their lives and their success and their happiness and their passion and their future starts with knowing their big why, their mission statement. It's on page 72 of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And I'll tell you guys, I do a lot of videos and I share a lot of posts, and I track this. I see this. The ones that talk about your passion and your purpose are the least viewed. The ones that talk about how to take a listing or a listing presentation, like the how-to actionable items inside of the business are the ones that are the most viewed. Isn't that interesting? John, what have you seen in you're a young lad and you're already so successful, and it has to be because you know why. Do you?
No, we don't. We have some tricks up our sleeve. We're very big into studying those ahead of us. So when Jordan mentions, write everything down that you don't want, we always pick our heads up and look ahead of us. Who is somebody who's 5 years down the line? Who are they being? Like I get inspired by those around me very easily and very quickly, and I get energy from other people. So if I'm surrounding myself with people in 5 years, do I want to be in their situation? And the answer is like, yes. I'm gonna actually sit down. I'm gonna ask them to coffee. I'm gonna interview them and be like, what's going well in your life? What's not going so well? Would you do anything differently? And kind of go through like the be, do, have for that specific individual and see how that aligns with my personal values. Because I know if I'm going to be around that kind of person, it's going to propel me forward. And I always catch up very quickly to those ahead of me because I'm so willing to change my thought process. If I think they're right, I'll switch overnight. It doesn't take me a long time to flip the switch. I'll be like, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't have that perspective before. And you have a more sophisticated perspective than I do because I'm very base thinking most of the time. But when I'm around these people who are so much further looking than I am, it just pulls me right up to their level in a very short period of time. And so I constantly pick my head up and say, who are they being? Can I be like them? What do they have to do to be able to be, that person, or what do they have that I want to have? And then ask them how they went through that process themselves. And sometimes you can't go through the same process that they've been through. So you have to find a different way to do it. Either the market's different, they have a different personality type. You have to find another way, but I believe you can still get there.
Do you ever feel like you're in lots of chaos, or is it messy? Because you're going fast.
It's only messy in my head. The business, because we come from the finance background, so everything we track and record everything. I mean, like I track my weight. I track how many leads come in. I track how many times we call them. Like everything that we do is very scientific and we track everything. I remember when I was in high school, I was lifeguarding and I saved up $3,600 to go to Europe for 3 weeks with my best friend. And he was a tracker. We tracked every meal, every drink, everything in this little log. And we were like 18 years old. And we came back and we did exchange rates and we had saved like $800. Like we're just tracker kind of people. Like that's kind of something that I adopted from my friend and it's come with us. So nothing really in our business is unexpected or a surprise because we enjoy the tracking process because we see the results that come from it.
Do you have any advice for those who are not trackers?
Find somebody to help you track it. If you are not a natural tracker, I would find somebody to be that person for you. And those people who love tracking, they might even offer to do it for you. Cause I like, like we were talking the other day, Jenny, like I'd love to see your P&L. Like I would live and breathe in a P&L and check out the business model and see how I can help. That's what really is like my personal passion. So find that person who, maybe if you're weak in that, like I'm weak in a lot of other things. But this is the one thing that I'm really passionate about and enjoy doing. So I would just hire to the weakness and just let that person have complete control of it and you focus on your strength.
So I want to add to that because, like John mentioned earlier, I had the opportunity to work with him and he's an amazing dude. I learned a lot from him. I still am. And the thing about tracking numbers or tracking anything is that when you're talking with somebody who that isn't a natural behavior for, something that can help with that is to understand the reason why, right? Because sometimes when I'm a coach and somebody says, well, all we talk about is numbers, then you have to understand something, that you behave your way to a goal. You behave your way to a goal. And in a business, the only way we can track behavior is through numbers. John can look at a profit and loss and the numbers tell him your behavior, your thought process. And what tracking does, whether it's a P&L or tracking what you eat or tracking your weight, whatever, it makes all your unconscious decisions conscious. And if you're going to create change in your world, it's always 3 steps. The first thing is awareness. The second thing is ownership. And the third thing is different actions. But if you don't have awareness of what needs to change because you're not tracking your decisions, then there's no way you're going to take ownership or different actions because you don't even know what's happening. It's habitual. So one thing I would add to what he said is, if you're not a tracker, just understand it's just about making the right decisions. That's what tracking does. The other thing I loved about Jon and what he just said is that, you know, when he's interviewing these people, he's very much following the ultimate success formula. And if you've ever been to Bold, you know what this is. You know, it's 4 steps. The first one is you've got to know your outcome. Step 2, you got to take massive action. 3, you notice whether it's working or not. And then 4, you change your approach. And what I love about Jon is that he's married to the result. He's not married to the process. You see, did you hear what he said? I'm so willing to change my thought process. He's willing to change because he's married to the result.
Yep.
And it's interesting, like I do this when I'm teaching a class. I'll stand in front of a class and say, how many of you in here, you know, I'm talking to the women, have ever decided that you were going to have a baby? And, you know, a bunch of them will raise their hands, and I'll say, okay, so when we're looking at the ultimate success formula, do we know step 1? Yep. We know the outcome, right? And then when you decided to have a baby, let me ask you a question. Were you focused on the fact that you were going to get fat and that you had to go to the doctor and that you had all these medical things? Like, were you focused on that, or were you focused on the baby? And all of them, as long as it wasn't a surprise baby, they say, you know, I was focused on the baby. See, successful people focus on the result. Failures focus on what you have to go through. And if you listen to the way Jon thinks, he just told you, I'm willing to change my thought process as long as I get the result.
Yeah. And I don't want to be the smartest person in the room either. Like, I hate, like, I've been in that situation before and I stopped growing. And in terms of being happy when you're the smartest person in the room, I don't think you feel as happy as you regularly did, because I think most people, they feel happiest when they're progressing towards a goal. And so, or have some sort of growth. So it's just getting into a different room as soon as possible, or a different location, like we talked about, Jordan, before.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how all of this comes together. This morning, I found a Wayne Dr. Dyer video on YouTube, and the thing I wrote down was, have a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing.
Oh, I love that.
And I remember years ago with a coach, I remember just feeling very free and open. And I remember saying, and I wrote it down as my reminder to myself, is I am open to receive. That is just exactly what Jon is sharing. He's opening his mind. He's allowing others, not opinions, but you're allowing others into your world and thoughts that you're allowing for expansion, which is awesome. So Jordan, we know that it's important to have a big why, a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Where should we go from here? We know how we're going to find it, because we're going to write down what we don't want to do.
Right. Another thing about that, Jenny, is there's an awesome process. If the writing down what you don't want isn't getting you there, there's something called fear setting. And I would encourage everyone to Google this, fear setting. And it comes from Tim Ferriss. In fact, last December, he did a TED Talk on this. That sound about right?
Yeah, it does.
And he walks through that process, and it's all about defining our greatest fears, because a lot of us walk around with fears that are like the boogeyman. They're not actually, if the worst possible thing happened 9 times out of 10, it's not as bad as you can make it, right? Like, one thing that I learned is that there's this thing called practice poverty. And I remember when coaching started to take off and we started to experience some financial success, and then I got really like in this scarcity mindset. And the thing that helped me was this idea of practice poverty, when I realized I defined the worst thing that's going to happen is if I lose it all, I'm going to end up in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with my wife and kids working at Costco. And that's like the worst thing that's going to happen. And when I made peace with that, I love Costco, I love going to Costco, it's fine. When I made peace with that, all the fear kind of went away. And now I'm free to play the game engaged, right? And the thing that you said earlier about chaos, you know, engagement will create chaos, and chaos will create clarity. You won't get to clarity until you've been through chaos. It's like people say all the time, I want to work smarter, I don't want to work harder. It's too bad. You're going to work hard before you work smart. You talk to anybody that's working smart and they'll tell you it's because I've been working really hard.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, once we get into this defining of your terms, you know, there's these 5 steps that actually I think Jon was on the call when we created this, and it's like a 5-step staircase. And the first thing is debt elimination. So we're looking at, we've kind of created this life by design, our life on our terms, and now you've got to fund it, right? And the first step, and I'm open to suggestions on this, this is just what I've seen to be effective, is debt elimination. Get rid of everything but the mortgage, right? Step two is the reserves. So we need 3 to 6 months in the business, 3 to 6 months at home. And we've got to know what those reserve amounts are and how much we need. Then step three, this is survival. And that is, how much money do you need coming in passively every single month that all your basic needs are met? Your mortgage, your utilities, your groceries, gas, for you to live week to week, month to month, how much money do you need coming in passively? And then the next one is lifestyle. How much money do you need coming in each month for you to live the lifestyle that you ultimately want? You're traveling the way you want. You're having the experiences that you want. How much money do you need coming in passively each month to fund that? And then ultimately the last one is your legacy. So that, to me, first is setting up your family to your vision. Maybe that's college or, trust funds or whatever. And then it's the causes, the things that are ultimately important to you, founding those things or giving money to those things. How much money do you need coming in passively to live your legacy? And the thing is that in coaching people, very, very, very few people have actually defined these figures and know and have a target that they're shooting at. And I just think that it's a massive opportunity when we talk about, once we know our purpose and then we create profit, but the profit is being allocated at a very specific target. Does that make sense? And that's something I think John's done a really great job of. And I would encourage you, John, to share what you've done, because you're living this.
Yeah, we are living the exact process that you just stated. 3.5 years ago, we were $80,000 in debt with student loans. We had car loans. I went to Wells Fargo to get a loan for $20,000 to start the business, buying leads actually, which was a good time to do it. I was very lucky because I don't believe you could probably do that in this market today. But the process that you outlined was exactly right. But the first thing that we did, it wasn't debt elimination. It was going to survival expenses. So we cut everything that was a non-essential, which is really funny because when you eliminate that stuff, you actually feel really liberated. You're like, I only need a couple things to live. Like, I need a good mattress so I don't have health problems with my back. I need good food. And then Warren Buffett says there's 3 things you need. You need good food, a good mattress, and good sex. That's literally what he says. He's like, after that, like anything, like what else do you need? We went down to like bare basics. So we were actually living in our fear, like worst case scenario from the beginning. And from there, we kind of went, okay, what are we going to tackle first? This debt has the highest interest rate. Then what's our next target after that? Like, maybe we should go on vacation. We should invest in our lifestyle and then build wealth through like buying real estate, like a rental, and have a legacy that we can pass down to our kids that's tax efficient.
Well, yeah. And so that has worked, because now share your successes to date. I mean, it's insane.
What's that?
It's just insane in your growth. It's amazing because you were so purposeful about it and you knew your purpose. So what would you say was your purpose that was fueling you all through that?
So we had a 5-year goal to become net worth millionaires. That was our first goal from when we started, because we heard Gary say you could do anything in 5 years that you wanted to do. And I think the millionaire thing, like, it wasn't important about being a millionaire or having the money, but like just like the journey of getting there, I think would be really, really exciting to do. We did it faster than we thought we would, frankly, because I was lead generating 14 to 16. I mean, we were working all the time. And the issue with that is our health actually started to deteriorate. So we actually we went kind of a little bit overboard with how much activity we were doing while not focusing on our whole selves. We were just focusing on the business, and our family and health were put to the side. So we learned that like is a big mistake, and now we're counterbalancing that. But the journey to get there was super, super fun, super rewarding. And it's something that we can help other people now go through that same journey, which is exciting.
Well, you absolutely, I mean, I know that you were really living this. You called me. It was probably a year ago. Do you remember this?
I do remember.
We'll agree to disagree on this one point, and it's because you're coming from a different place. So, Jordan, share with everyone what you called me about. Sorry, John.
Yeah, so I called you and asked how your referral business was going, because I was curious of what the profit margins look like for the amount of work that you had to put in, especially having a team. I mean, if you have a team member right off the bat, they have 25% referral, you have a 50-50 split, and then you have the split with KW. You know, does that work? You know, I was just like really curious about how that P&L operates, because there's a lot of disruption in the real estate business right now, and there's commission compression, which is very real. There's technology companies coming in looking to cut out the agent, all these different aspects. And so I was curious, you know, with the referral aspect, how is that going to play into this long-term for your business model? And I was really curious, because I see how much business you get from that. And our budget model says, you know, your lead generation is supposed to be 10%, but maybe your referral was 25%. Well, that 15% difference is probably eating into your profit and your team members' profit. So how do you manage that? Did I say that right?
No, you said it exactly right. And here's the difference, though, between your thinking and my thinking, is that I'm old school. I've been in this business for so long, and I've just been a salesperson, not a business person. So to be honest, I didn't know. I mean, my agents were getting hot leads and referrals, and they were taking the business, and they're happy because they're getting paid. But if I backtrack and look at it through that lens, then it gives me a huge different perspective. And now we just know we got to go get more non-referral business, right? To help to be higher and more.
Your argument was really smart, though, and you were like, referrals, we're going to serve them really well, so we get more referrals, and we're going to build our data bank, and it's going to pay off for us long term. So short term pain, long term gain, and it was very smart. So
it does
about that either.
Yeah, and we see that for sure.
Yeah.
So we understand our purpose, and we understand the value of looking at and knowing our numbers and tracking our numbers. What about those agents out there? Because there's a lot of us. That this is real painful. This is like, I'd rather not, or we're just so in the business of the transaction that we can't even like get to this stuff yet. It's that time of year. We should be thinking about 2020, and we're just in it. Where do we go from here? Where do we start? You go, coach.
Oh, okay. I mean, my natural response to that is just tough, do it anyway. Because I have an analogy that's, if I want to become a doctor and I have to go through medical school, right? And if John is the dean of the medical school and I meet with him and say, John, I really want to become a doctor and I want to go to your medical school, but I don't like taking tests. So what can you do? How can you help me out here? John's going to look at me and go, tough. I mean, right. You're going to have to suck it up and do it. And, to me, it's a lot easier to prepare than it is to repair. And I think to his point earlier, if you're not really strong at this, hire someone to do it, or find someone in your office that can help you do it. And yet you can't call yourself a business person until you are regularly reviewing your financials. Yeah. I mean, think of it like you're going onto Shark Tank, and those people are going to grill you about your business. Would you just sit up there and not be able to answer their questions? Or on the other side of that, if you are one of the investors and you have questions about the business, would you invest in your own business based upon your knowledge of the financials? And I hallucinate to think that most people in the real estate industry want to be business owners. Now, I think that there are two types of agents that sort of emerge inside of our industry. I believe that most people are either a lifestyle agent, or I think they're a growth agent. And I don't know that it's black and white. I think it's kind of a spectrum. But growth agents are people that are in this because business is their sport. It's their athletic event. It's all about how big can I make it? How big can I grow it? It's like Gary. If he wanted to have retired, how long ago could Gary have retired? Probably before any of us were even in the company, right? If he really wanted to. Mm-hmm. And yet he doesn't, because the business, look on page 75 in the MREA, every goal he's ever set is because of how much it makes him grow. He's not in it for the money. And so you have about 10% of the population inside of real estate that are growth agents, that they want to just blow it up. And then you have lifestyle agents who want to use the business to fund their lifestyle. And there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. I know a lot of lifestyle agents who've had a wonderful career in real estate. They have to pay attention to how they're investing their dollars and what their exit strategy is, because the business is usually not going to be their exit strategy long term. And yet they can pay off their mortgage, buy rental properties. There's a lot of ways that they can create passive income. And what I see as a big challenge, Jenny, is that today, there's so many lifestyle agents that what John said in that post was, we are happiest when we are being truest to our nature. And a lot of people in this industry, to their nature is a lifestyle agent, but they're masquerading as a growth agent, and they can't figure out why they aren't bumping through this ceiling of achievement. And the reason is because you weren't necessarily meant to be that kind of an agent. It's not true to your nature. And so I think that's something that we don't talk enough about, and that being a lifestyle agent there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a great thing for people who own it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I own it. I'm a lifestyle agent. So I like the growth. That's one of my top 5 strengths is achiever and growth, but it's for the purpose of getting the lifestyle. Like, I want time with family. I want, good health. I want to have income. So I don't know, maybe it's a mix of it, but I definitely feel like I lean towards the purpose why I'm in this is to build a lifestyle for myself long term. It's not just for the pure pursuit of more growth for the sake of growth. It's so I can maximize my lifestyle.
And I'll even agree with that as well. As I've been in this industry for 18 years, and it's almost as long as you've been alive, John. I said it, so it's okay. And I've had so much, 4 years ago, it's almost been 4 years ago is when I was really going through the breakdown and the who am I and the hating people and why am I doing this? And that is when I took the QL for Young Instructors course, instructor certification class in Austin with Gary Keller. I was on the second row, middle seat. You guys have been in the room, right where you got the best shot of him. And I just took it all in. And this is, you guys have been in the room with him, how it feels. And he just speaks to you and like shakes you, honestly. And this is when I'm like, what the heck am I doing? And this is where I discovered that I have super awesome, amazing mega agent friends. And they are growth. They are go, go, go. They love it. They love it. It fuels them. It fires them up. They love conquering and taking that listing. That's just what sets them on fire. And then I discovered that that's not me.
Yep.
And that's where I was in that struggle, Jordan, that you were talking about, that in between of I thought I wanted to be them and I just wasn't. And so okay, so now as I've discovered, instead I love empowering agents and training and coaching them to be their best selves, to be whichever lifestyle or growth agent they choose to be on their terms while living their purposeful life. Now I'm set free, and I got out of the way for my agents so that they could go be those agents, and I can just be their cheerleader along the way, and I can share with other agents. So that's where I'm so freed up and can breathe now, because I've figured that out. And now with a coach and now with a business and a team, I still have to bring in the business. I still need to be connected. And so I just think I love that lifestyle or growth. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that will free up people to be okay with who they are, and they can choose it, and they can still have an awesome big life with that. So thank you.
and they'll be built along the way.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, discovering your mission. And if you guys haven't gotten this from me before, I have a mission statement exercise that's a couple pages, and it really asks great questions to get there. So if anyone's watching and wants that, just hit me up and I'll share it again. Because what is so cool, and John, we talked about this, when you know why you're doing this and who you are and what matters to you most, and you attach that to your lead generation, to your community involvement, to your giving back, to your real estate team, to your culture, to your purpose, to your passion, it all just then you get to start attracting people into your world, whether it's on your real estate team or as clients or as friends. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah. I have something to comment on that. The lifestyle versus growth, as super good comments. And Diana would ask this all the time. Are you willing to do what it takes, to pay the toll to have what they have and be what they're going to be? And the answer for me, I see these people tell these stories on stage, and I was like, no, I don't want that at all. I want the success, but there's got to be another way for me that's going to match my behavioral style. So it's probably not going to be the same way that they did it. And then you're saying, you figured that out. You said that my behavioral style isn't take another listing, but I'm a great cheerleader and I can cheer the person on and I can coach and train them and inspire them to go further than they would on their own. And that I totally see that in you. And I get inspired by just seeing you and what you're doing and everything. So I think that's very smart. And that's thinking like a business owner, because you're saying, this is my skill set. It's something I'm going to naturally do. I mean, you are so consistent with your Facebook and everything that it's amazing, right? Most people wouldn't be able to wake up and do something like that every single day and commit to it. And it's natural for you. So I think you're going to go really far with matching your behavioral profile with your job role. I think it's great.
Well, thank you. Well, this is about you and your passion and purpose. So what is that? Why don't you share that? Because I know you guys have attached that to your world.
Yeah. So my wife and I recently had a baby 7 months ago. It feels like it's recent. And so that has really changed our perspective on everything. Before, our value system was business, business, business. How can I just achieve more and just keep crushing it? Once the baby came into the world, everything re-ranked, where time was the most important thing. And then spending time with family as much as possible. And then business kind of slotted down into third place, which was okay because we had prepared for that. So being able to track it and fund the lifestyle and live really frugally for 3 years, we lived on 12% of our after-tax income. And we banked the rest. We put it all, we started becoming really tax efficient. We hired tax advisors, and we made sure that we made real estate investments that would give us cash flow. So we just became, and we did this because we noticed other people ahead of us, again, studying people ahead of us, what kind of lifestyle do they have? Why do I see those people on vacation all the time? Do they actually have money, or are they just putting that on a credit card? And we're just seeing who was real, who is not, and just asking around. And then we eventually got there. And then my eventual goal is I want to be able to bring in enough income from the investments that we can start. Homelessness is something that really bothers me. I hate, when we were traveling in Europe and in downtown Jacksonville, we have a homeless problem, and see people going through the trash looking for food. It's something that really gets me angry, that's even a thing in this country. And so that's something that I'm passionate about. So now my purpose is how do I build such a huge portfolio through passive investments that I can consistently, not one time give $100 to one of these things, but build a wealth system to help fund the people who are at the bottom in this country, unfortunately, because I hate seeing it. And that's it just came from within. And that's what QL is all about, is kind of figuring out what gets you fired up. I know, Jordan, we talked about it before, and we have similar things that get us fired up. And you can have that passion, and those are big problems, and it can fuel you so far. And so I'm really excited to be around bigger thinkers like you, Jenny and Jordan, where you guys are I want to conquer these huge problems that are just going to pull you so much further than you would if you weren't in your environment, maybe by yourself at your house, versus going out there and networking with other people.
Yeah, I remember a conversation with John. We were talking about this, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
The question is, what pisses you off more than anything else?
Yeah.
right? And then and we started having that conversation, and I'll never forget this. I don't even know if I ever shared this with John. And yet from that, just thinking through that question came the question of, what's the biggest problem I intend to solve in my life? Yeah. What is the biggest problem I intend to solve with my life? And so all great businesses are created from problems. That's what they're here for, is to solve a problem, right? So I had forgotten about that, John. That's a great point. What really pisses you off? What makes you mad? That's a great place to also back into passion, purpose, why, whatever it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, I love it. So Jordan, let's go a coaching route here. So John has shared with you homelessness pisses him off.
Yeah.
So how would you coach him into his mindset and thinking about applying that passion and business?
Okay, so the first thing that I would go to is proximity is power, right? So write that down. Proximity is power. And so what's the difference between an interest and a commitment? Because I would want to figure out, is John interested in curing or solving homelessness, or is he committed to it? And a great analogy is that if we're going to stoke his fire and really feed his passion, we need him to get out and meet the people that this is actually impacting, hear their stories, see their everyday lives. It's like, you want to become a vegetarian, you can read a book or go to a slaughterhouse. I think you should go to the slaughterhouse. So that would be the first place I'd probably go, is to see how interested and committed John is to this. And then the thing about coaching people, like when you get into homelessness, or even if we're talking about investment properties, it always starts go to the slaughterhouse. So that would
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So it always starts with one, right? I mean, if you're going to buy a rental property, you've got to buy one before you're going to buy 10. You've got to help one person before you buy 10, or before you help 10. Sometimes big thinking can get in our way because we're thinking so big that we forget about the small steps along the way, right? So I would start working with John about, okay, paint the vision for me. Tell me about this. What is it? Tell me about the specific people you have met and have sat down with and talked to and heard their stories. And what is it specifically you want to do for that person? And then help them build from there. And that to start authoring the story from there. That makes sense?
Yeah. Can I add to that, Jordan? I learned something amazing from you on one of our calls, where you said you didn't want to be the one to actually do the work. You wanted to coach the people that were doing the work for your passion. So that really got me thinking, like, because you still, if you're going to help do something, you should use your natural behavior again to put yourself in that role. So like me being a finance background and loving finance, I wouldn't go down to the shelter and feed food. Like, that's not something that interests me. I don't have the patience to listen to stories. I'm like, just being frank here, like that's not a good use of, but if I could join a foundation that has financials where I could help their board maximize what they have and get even more tax efficiency, that would be something where I can contribute my best behavior in a way that's going to maximize one of the passions that I have, while maybe doing those other things on the side. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, great point.
And that's something I learned from you, Jordan. It like blew my mind when we had that conversation. I was like, I shouldn't be doing those things because I naturally I'm not going to enjoy it, honestly.
That's a great point.
That means that you're so self-aware. This is how cool this is, you guys. You both I'm already like exploding in my brain because you both are so self-aware that you realize, like, as a human, it would be really nice to go to the home, to feed, to do the food. I mean, all those things. And then we know our reality and our truth is like, when are we going to make that happen? Is it really going to happen? Is that really my skill set? I mean, wow, you guys just turned that around. And Jordan, I just want to say though, something that you just did when I asked you how you would coach him is you knew what his passion was. You know that he's in business and he sells real estate. And instead of saying, well, here's what you do, you coached around and asked lots of questions that he solves the problem himself. You did that to me on our last call.
Yep.
You're like, hey, good job, Jenny. You just figured this all out. Well, I didn't do it by myself.
That's an inherent laziness of mine. See, it's John's point. I don't want to do any work. I want you guys to do all the work. So that's how that happens, Jenny.
I love this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what else is something that we want to hit on here before we are done with our time together? I feel like there's some good stuff.
So, one thing that I wanted to circle back around to, we're talking about this question around the big why, and people get hung up on this. And, oftentimes I'll ask somebody, tell me about somebody you really admire. And what is it about that person that you admire? And so let's just say John says Gary Keller, and then he says, well, I admire that, he's a visionary, and then he executes on it, and he puts people first. And I said, okay, that's great. So what you're describing to me is the characteristics of his spirit. You didn't say he's 6'3", he's got gray hair and wears black, shirts all the time. You're describing his spirit. So what he's doing is he's describing to me the ideal self. He's describing who he intends to be. And so what I always go to next is knowing that about him and I think you've both heard me ask you these questions. So let's say that, Brene Brown wrote this great book called Daring Greatly. And in the book, she talks about it's never about parenting the right way. It's about being the adult we want our kids to be. And so one question I'll ask people all the time, like if they're stuck, they don't know their big why, they need help with a project, whatever, is I'll say, who's the person you love most in the world? And maybe it's a child, Mia, for example. It's Mia. Okay. 25 years down the road, Mia comes to you and is in the exact same scenario. Everything's the same. And she says, I don't know what to do, Mom. What do I do? Now, you're not going to say nothing. You're not going to sit there and say, I don't know. That's not what you're going to do. And yet that advice will start to flow out of you. And as a parent, as another human being, the advice we would give to the people we love is the highest source of advice we have. In fact, I tell people all the time, you're not living your best life until you're following your best advice. And I think if we're talking about, how do I get to the big why and you don't have clarity on that, well, then just live every day the way you would want your kids to live. And Gary talks about this too. He said every book he's ever written, every time that he presents, he's doing it for John because that puts him in his best self. And so I think that's just one more piece because when you look at building a successful life, I believe we all live 4 lives. We have ourself, that's the relationship we have with ourselves. There's our intimate life, which is the relationship we have with our partner. There is our private life, which is our family relationship, our children and our close friends. And then there's our public life, and that's how everybody sees us. And I believe that you should start from the inside and work out, that's the place where all your greatest information, all the greatest decisions, the alignment comes from. And unfortunately, what we see in today's culture is a lot of trying to work from the outside in. And if I just have enough Instagram followers, if enough people think I'm successful, then I'll be happy, I'll be great. And Gary puts this really well. He says, do you want to be rich or do you want to be famous? And I think that a great life starts in the center. If you put those 4 lives in like a target that flows out, start with yourself. How's the relationship with you? When you look at you in the mirror in the morning and there's no one around, what's the quality of that conversation? Are you talking to yourself like you would talk to your kid? Are you coaching yourself like you would coach your kid? Especially people that are really critical, that they can't forget a failure, but they have short-term memory loss of every success they've ever had. And they've got this critic in their mind that's going all the time. Understand that critic is your inner coach, and it has a positive intent. It wants you to do better. It wants you to perform better, but abuse does not incite performance. And if you want to get yourself to perform at the highest level, then get that inner coach talking to you the way it would talk to your children. Because I don't think that you would tell your kids, oh, you made a mistake. Let's sit here and beat the crap out of yourself for 30 minutes and just see how much better you do. So sorry, my little, my soapbox rolled in here.
I love it because it's also related and it all goes back to Quantum Leap, right? So Gary says, recognize that what you manifest in the physical world always begins in your mind. And I think because I've been in this content of learning, 6 personal perspectives, bold a few times, that I've always been, I've been thinking this way for over 10 years. And so my daughter really has no option.
Right?
She's just, been raised this way of thinking. And even as a woman in the society, I don't put myself down when I'm looking in the mirror trying on clothes. She'll never hear that kind of language from me. So I think that's something we can do as parents, is making sure that every time we're with our children, the words we use, not talking bad about other people, putting other people down. I mean, everything matters with our kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why are we doing it with other people? I mean, I found, honestly, guys, that as I've had so much growth in my mindset and my life, that I have fewer and fewer friends, because you get real purposeful about your time and what you allow into your world as far as language and those around you. Have you guys found that to be true? Do you have fewer friends too?
I never really had any friends to start with.
Well, good. We're friends. Have you noticed that with your growth? I mean, John, you work with your wife, so you've got one friend at least along for the ride in this. What are you finding?
I think there's a lot of different personality types out there. For me, studying my personality type with Anna Kruger, who I'm sure you both know, I love her to death. She did Strength Finders with me and identified that I'm very selective with my friends. So I'd rather have 2 or 3 really, really deep relationships than a bunch of relationships. And that's definitely my preference. I've noticed in myself. One of the things I'd like to say for the people watching, if you're like me and you get super negative every 3 months and you just start defaulting down, you go down to that baseline where you start turning negative. One of the things I figured out is I have to get a conference in my schedule every 2 months to beat myself to it, so I don't go to that default. And I realized I do that a lot. I just have to get myself out of my natural rhythm and get myself thinking bigger again. It's something that I'm very aware of now, because I used to self-sabotage myself and blow myself up, and then I'd get myself in a different environment and then come back to it with a different mindset. Really helped.
Wow, that is really cool. Well, any final closing thoughts that you guys have here? We've got just a little bit more time, and anything that we didn't talk about that we should have.
You mentioned the mission statement, Jenny, and that is a process, not an event. My mission statement is to be a student of wisdom and a teacher of freedom. And it took me a long time to come up with that. It was a process, and it requires patience. And then when you develop that thing, I believe big whys are conditioned. We're not awakened to them. That, when you talk to an agent or a business owner and, I ask the question of, have you done that work? Do you know your mission statement? And some of them do, some of them don't. And for those who do know it, are you living it? Are you conditioning it in? And, I liken it to brushing your teeth. You don't wake up on Monday morning and brush your teeth and then say, all right, I'm good for the rest of the week. I'll brush them next Monday. Hygiene, just like a mission statement or a why, wears off. And we are tasked with conditioning them daily, sometimes multiple times a day. And yet there's no one knocking on your door saying, did you condition your big why? Did you go over it today? And something that's been very helpful to me and a number of my clients is, instead of having a vision board that's sitting on our desk, is create a vision album in your phone. Create the pictures and all of that as an album in your phone, because we're very rarely all day without our phone. And the challenge I had with the vision board is that if I wasn't at my office, I couldn't look at it. And so, every time we have a small break, 2 to 3 minutes, are you conditioning that back into your nervous system so that you're thinking like the person that can create those things?
You're brainwashing yourself.
If I was watching you on Facebook right now, I would have been loving everything you just said right there. I mean, that is so true. And we also teach people, as they're working through their personal mission statement exercise, that they're just dating. This is not a commitment for life. You're going to work through this. You're going to change you're going to evolve. Inside my notes on my phone, I have 4 different mission statements. They have evolved over the years. Here's the first one, and then here's the last one on my sticky notes. I've shared these before. John, you read this you know what, John, you were with me when I tweaked this last one at the QL workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you read it and you said, yeah, that sounds like you.
It does. It really does. I love it.
So, John, what are your final thoughts then, kind of relating to all that?
The mission statement.
Yeah, just kind of wrapping it up.
I think it's something that evolves, and one of the things that I've been is and I'm intending to do more of is get in alignment with other people who have the same mission as soon as possible, because again, it's going to bring me more towards that goal. So getting into a different environment, getting in with the right people with the right mindsets. I just can't stress how important environment has been towards our growth. And I know, if we don't get ourselves in that environment, it'll never happen. So we have to be around those other passionate people where, like you said, like you're writing it down, you have a vision board, but why isn't your vision board your best friend is always reminding you of what your passions were? Like you get together like once a week with this group that's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go at it. So it keeps it alive, because I think that accountability is really important. So I'm looking to get in alignment with other people that have the same goals, the same missions, the same behaviors, and the same dreams and passion as soon as possible, so we can start to take off to the next level. And Diana said something about it. I had the privilege of talking with her at Mega Camp, and she said it's the journey from success to significance. Mm-hmm. And that's what she mentioned to me, and it just hit me like a truck. It was rough. And she was like, "Yeah, you've just been so focused on success. You need to. The next level is significance, which is what we're striving to be." So.
And today we were also supposed to touch on profit pieces of our business as well. I mean, honestly though, right? Like, doesn't it all just have to start with our purpose, and then you have the passion to do the business to have a profit? Do we need another call?
Could be, yeah. That could be another call. You got to know this before you said it earlier. If, when I started out, my big why was that my dad would never be in a nursing home, and that I had to make the money to make sure that would never happen. So every Legion call was about that. And so it was always, the greater pain will always win. And the pain of him sitting there in my mind was always greater than picking up and calling the next FSBO or knocking the next door or calling the next agent when I was a team leader. So I think that when you get to the purpose side, and then you can go through those stairs and get really specific about what those amounts need to be, that's where you tie in the profit of the business.
Well, yeah, probably. This one sure ate up a lot, and it feels like we were just scratching the surface of how amazing this business can be, the opportunities that we have, and how many lives we can change by doing what we love. Sound like that? Is that kind of what you guys took from that as well?
Totally.
Yep.
I appreciate you guys so much.
I appreciate both of you too.
Yay. Well, I look forward to seeing you guys soon. If you guys need anything, let me know. I will share that mission statement exercise. Remember, you're just dating it. You're not married to it right now. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Let's set up another call for profit only. Okay. Profit first. Profit.
Thanks, Jenny.
Okay. Bye, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
See ya.